Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So we are going to be looking at the elements of graphic design. Now I so love this particular section because it is the core of graphic design. Elements and principles are the core of graphic design, because if you don't understand the elements and the principles very well, you are not going to become a good graphic designer, but you will become a graphic destroyer. Yes, a graphic destroyer. So pay attention and understand these elements properly, and of course, understand the principles as well. All right. Now, what are elements of graphic design? Now, elements of graphic design are those things, those components that we put together in order to come out with a perfect design. All right. When you pick up a flyer or a business card, you're going to see there are several elements that are used in order to actually carry out that design. Now, let me take an example and let me take a scenario which I believe you're going to understand what these elements of graphic designs are. Now, if let's take, for example, you want to get into car manufacturing. All right. Now, we already know that we have different car manufacturing companies. We have Tesla, we have Toyota, we have BMW. Now, these are car manufacturing companies. There are a lot of things that these companies have in common. What are those things? The elements they use in order to manufacture their cars. All right. Now, when we talk about elements, they are the things they put together in order to come out with a very good car. All right. So those are what we call the elements. Now, these elements may include the tires, the bonnet, the wheels, the doors, all right, the chairs. Now, these things are similar with all the car manufacturing companies, all right, and they have specific spots which they actually place these particular elements. Now, what makes the companies different? One is the brand, that's maybe their logos, the design of the car, which therefore means that what is differentiating these companies are their principles. All right. So they have similar elements, but they have different principles they have used in order to come out with these cars. All right. So Tesla has its own principles. That's the reason why if you see a car which is designed by Tesla, it has its own shape and design. While that of Toyota has its own shape and design. And there are some companies that produce different cars. All right. For example, Toyota may have 3 different cars, all right, with 3 different designs. So they have used different principles to actually design these cars, but they have the same elements. So getting back to graphic design, what are the elements of graphic design? Elements of graphic designs are those components that help to build that are found. These are the components that are found on any graphic design. All right. So there are 12 of them, like I earlier mentioned, but we are going to be talking about the 6 major ones. All right. We have lines, we have shapes, we have direction, size, texture, and color. I'm just going to be brief about them. All right. So the first one is the line. Now, the line marks made with a pen or brush, or the edge created when 2 shapes meet. Now, when you pick up a design, you can just pick up any design. You are going to see lines on that design, I bet you. If there are no lines on that design, then I don't think maybe that design it's lacking in something. All right. So we are simply saying that these elements are brought together to actually come up with a perfect design. So lines actually connects 2 points together. All right. There might be lines, but you might not see the lines. We have white lines, black lines, different colors, all right? And they actually make a design look very beautiful. The next element is the shape. So a shape is a self-contained defined area, all right? So examples, we have squares, circles, freeform shapes, or what? Natural shapes. There are different types of shapes, all right? And these shapes count a lot when you're carrying out your design. The next is direction. All lines have direction, horizontal, vertical, or oblique. So we have horizontal lines, we have vertical lines, we have oblique lines. They are very, very important when it comes to direction. So direction simply tries to tell you in which way a particular element is moving. We have direction in terms of shapes, we have direction in terms of lines, we have direction in terms of size. All right, so direction is very, very important. We are going to look at that when we are actually carrying out a practical session. Then the size of elements to is very, very important. Size is simply the relationship of the area occupied by one shape to that of another. Always ensure that when you are designing you're carrying out design, the size is very, very important. All right, where you place a particular shape on the line is very important, and the size of it is actually very important. We are going to look at that as well. Then we talk about texture. Texture just simply means how the surface area of a particular shape or size or line looks like. All right, maybe it is rough, it is smooth, it is soft, hard, or glossy. Then of course, color. I don't need to be talking about color. We have several colors we use in our designs, and color is very, very important. When you combine the wrong colors, you are going to have a very, very poor design. So color is the light which is reflected off an object. All right, now we are done with the elements. Now let's look at the principles. All right, so principles are those things. They are those things that help to guide you combine your elements together. All right, and I think we are going to go detailedly in these principles. All right, so we have balance, we have proximity, we have alignment, we have repetition, we have contrast, and we have space. Now let's get into them right away. Now balance in design is similar to balance in physics. All right, so a large shape close to the center can be balanced by a smaller shape close to the edge of a design. Now if you look on the right side of my screen, you're going to see examples of balancing up elements. All right, it's very, very important. Once you balance up your elements properly, it's going to look very, very beautiful. So you should put that in mind when you're carrying out your design. So balance in graphic design can be achieved by what? Adjusting the visual weight of each element in terms of scale, color, contrast, etc. Now if you look on the right, the image above, you will discover that when we are talking about balancing, we can balance. We need to know how to balance not only shapes, we need to know how to balance colors, we need to know how to balance even contrast. If you look at this design, you see that we are having something like a brown, right, light, another section is dark, and then we have how you look at the way we've adjusted the circles, the squares, the circles. It looks beautiful. That's how you balance up objects on your design. So balance in graphic design is divided into two types. We have the symmetrical and the asymmetrical. This is very, very important as well. Now, when we talk about balance in terms of symmetrical balance, it occurs when the visual weight of design elements evenly divided in terms of horizontal, vertical, or radial. This style relies on a balance of two similar elements from two different sides. So we are simply saying that for you to balance up in terms of symmetrical, it therefore means the elements that are located, because you need to divide your screen into two, the elements that are on both sides are similar. All right, we are going to look at how you can balance this in practical sessions. So when you're putting a particular element on one side, you can ensure that you balance that element on the other side. All right, so when we'll be designing flyers, you see we put some shapes to make it look beautiful. You need to try as much as possible to balance it symmetrically. All right, now when we talk about asymmetrical, you are balancing up your design, but on one side, the elements you're using on one side are somehow different from what you're using on the other side. All right, so the shapes which you might use on one side, you may use something else on the other side, but make sure it balances up. All right. For example, when you're designing a flyer, you understand you may be the person who is about to do maybe a presentation flyer, a business presentation. The person is on one side, but make sure that the elements you put on the other side, maybe the time and things like that, should actually balance up with what you are doing on the other side. So this occurs when the visual weight of design elements are not evenly distributed in the central axis of the page. This style relies on visual games such as scale, contrast, color to achieve a balance. We often see a design with the big picture offset by small but visible text balance because of the visual game. So that's what I'm trying to say. You may see an image on one side, but you balance it up with maybe text, all right, or color on the other side. So these are examples. If you look on the right, these are examples of balancing up your design in a way which looks good. Now, proximity. Proximity is just trying to see how close your elements are. All right. Proximity creates relationship between elements. It provides a focal point. Proximity doesn't mean that elements have to be placed together. It means they should what? Be visually connected together. All right. So looking at these examples you see on the screen, you see the Adidas logo, right? If you look on the other side, the Adidas logo, the spacing between those shapes are the same as what you see on the other side of the Adidas logo. The spacing are the same. All right, so it doesn't matter, but Adidas decided that, or the designer who was creating this design decided that it should look like this. All right, so if you look at it very well, you understand the proximity, how close or the distance between this design. That's what we talk about, proximity. Then alignment, very, very important. This is one of the most important principles of graphic design. Alignment allows us to create order and organization. Aligning elements allow them to do what? To create a visual connection with each other. Now, if you look at this design very well, if you look at the birds that are flying, that on the left side is not aligned properly, but that on the left, on the left side is not aligned properly, but that on the right